and she's a true leader in supporting athletes beyond their sports careers. She has pioneered an innovative mental health and wellness program to help former athletes successfully transition to life after sports, which is difficult, by the way. With over a decade of experience in financial investment management, co-hosting Pep Talk in broadcast journalism, and breaking barriers as co-owner of Strong Racing, the first African-American female-owned NASCAR team, her career is nothing short of impressive. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dawn Whittaker. Woo!
Wow, how do I follow that story? Arus is just amazing and inspiring, and it was my first time hearing that story, and it's just really heartwarming and just so wonderful that she even brought all of us here together to create this inspiring space. So I really just want to say thank you to Arus, and thank you to all of you for being here. I'm really privileged to be here in this room with such amazing women, and so let's get started. So today we're going to talk about redesigning your lifestyle for your well-being. And let me move forward. So obviously, we're all women that, as women, we reach for the stars. We're always, starting businesses, moving up in our careers, taking care of everyone around us, taking care of our families, managing different responsibilities. And so we're doing all of these things, and oftentimes we forget to take care of ourselves. And so if we continue on that path, that's only going to lead to burnout, right? So I want to talk about making sure that you prioritize yourself first. And that's something that, we don't do. That's something that we don't have time for. Has anybody used this excuse? Wait, but I don't have time. I know I have. I'm sure many of you can relate, because we're so busy taking care of everything else. Sometimes taking care of ourselves can feel like just one more task on that task list that is so long, and then maybe we don't get to it. And really, it can't be muddled in that task list. It needs to be on the top of that list, because we are our number one priorities. And I do want to say that, there we go. Like I mentioned, if you continue down that path and you don't take the time to take care of your wellness and your well-being, it will lead to burnout, and that's actually what happened to me. So just let me briefly share with you a little bit about my story, and thank you for the introduction, but I have a background in many things, sports, but also change management. And in my primary business, as she mentioned, I help former athletes with their transition to life after sport and navigating the emotional challenges that come with that transition. But in 2021, I experienced my own breaking point, and I was doing all the things. There we go. There we are. I was doing all the things that I mentioned, but the problem was I was prioritizing everyone else but me. And so that resulted in a mental breakdown. And what I realized at that time is that first I needed to slow down. I needed to really make some difficult changes in the way that I was living my life, and I needed help. So I worked with a team of doctors. It had a therapist, a pain psychotherapist, my neurologist, because I'm a migraine sufferer, and an occupational therapist. And together, we all designed a wellness program that was going to work for my particular lifestyle. And that's what's really important, is it has to be able to fit into your lifestyle. Otherwise, you may not do it. And at this point, that's not an option. So one of the things that I learned as I started my recovery was that in order to have effective stress management, you had to address 3 different areas. And just taking care of one area or maybe 2 areas was not sufficient enough. And I'll just give you an example. I was working out every day, right? So I think in my mind I was thinking, okay, working out, that's stress reliever, I'm doing something, but I wasn't doing enough. And so the 3-pronged approach is what we call it, is physiological. Those are the things that you do that are having a direct impact on your body. The cognitive are those things that you think about. Managing your thoughts, we talked a lot about that this morning with mindset and rerouting negative thoughts. And then also the behavioral. So these are those things that you do that have an impact on your well-being, whether they're positive or negative. So let's talk about the physiological techniques first. These are those things, as I mentioned, that are directly impacting your body and able to calm your body. And let me first start by saying that breathwork is your best friend. Some of the other speakers talked about breathwork earlier. And actually the first 3 practices on this list are variations of breathwork. And breathwork is, the science behind it is actually really fascinating because it has the ability to shift your body from a period of stress to a period of calm. And it does this by slowing down your heart rate and increasing your oxygen and resetting your nervous system. So if we have time, I want to go over just a couple of these exercises. The first one is really important, I want to mention, because it's simple, and simple is the first word of it. It's so simple, you can do it at any time of the day. You can do it when you're waking up in the morning, you can do it at the end of the day, you can do it intermittently during the day, throughout the day, anytime you're feeling stressed. And it's so simple, it's just the simple deep breathing process is you breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, and then you release for 6 seconds. Easy, right? So let's do it one time. No, let's do it 2 times. So everybody ready? Okay, so first, breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, in 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did everybody do it? Okay. So ideally, you're going to want to do that for 3 or 4 rounds, and you can do that in less than a minute. So if you're about to go into, a crazy meeting or a stressful situation, or if you've just come out of a stressful situation, then you can just do that just for a really quick reset of your nervous system, and it will calm stress immediately. Okay, the next one is diaphragmatic breathing. And this is very similar to the simple breathing technique in that you also breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 4. But the difference is that you're going to engage your diaphragm. So we're not going to do this, but I'm just going to talk you through it. As women, this was actually very difficult for me because we are, basically trained through our lives to what? Suck in your stomach. So it's almost counterintuitive to say, when you breathe in, let your stomach relax and let your diaphragm expand. So when you do that first breath, your diaphragm expands and you're sticking it out. And so how many of us, right? We're trained, we've conditioned to hold in your stomach, to hold it in for the picture. And so to think that you're going to breathe in and let it go out takes some work. It takes practice. But then once you get good at it, then it'll, become part of your routine if you're able to do that. So autogenic training is, I'm just going to describe it. We're not going to do it because it does take a little bit longer. Sorry. But it's using visualization to calm the body. And the idea behind it is you go through parts of your body and you imagine the sensation of heat and it being heavy. So for instance, if you imagine your right hand and you imagine it being heavy and you imagine it being warm, and you go through the process of going from the right hand to the left hand and different parts of your body. But by doing that process, what that does is it activates the relaxation portion of your brain, and it allows you to kind of drop into a deeper state of relaxation while you're doing that. And that will reset your nervous system and help you with reducing stress. Okay, so there on that first slide, there were some more of the physiological techniques. We just went over 3 of them, but I don't know if you want me to go back. So the next section that we're going to talk about is the cognitive techniques. And like I mentioned, that's managing your thoughts. And this is piggybacking on a lot of those great talks that we heard this morning, where you pay attention to your thoughts. Some of the cognitive techniques that you can do are emotional audit. We'll talk about some of these. Guided imagery, reframing negative thoughts. I think 2 or 3 speakers talked about that. We'll talk about that a little bit. Practicing mindfulness and journaling. So first, the emotional audit is actually very powerful, and it's something that every single one of us should do on a daily basis. And I recommend doing it first thing in the morning or just before bed, or both. Because what you're doing is you're checking in with yourself and you're identifying and categorizing any lingering emotions that need to either be let go or addressed. So we did talk about the emotional audit. Again, that's going to help you just clear any of those lingering emotions that you might be holding on to, maybe need to be processed, and you don't really realize it until you do this exercise and you ask yourself, how am I feeling? Right? So that's how you're checking in with yourself for the emotional audit. You say, how am I feeling? Am I upset about anything? Is there anything that I'm worried about? Is there anything that I'm carrying with me that needs to be dropped? Or maybe you need to have a difficult conversation with someone. I used to do this all the time. I would carry that. And that needs to be let go. So it's very helpful to do this emotional audit just to clear some of that clutter from your mind, which will weigh you down, and it will actually cause more stress. So also there's guided imagery. I believe a couple speakers touched on this as well. But you're able to calm your mind by focusing on a calming image. And for me, it's always going to involve water and usually horses or some animal, but preferably water and horses. But let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to do a guided imagery just really quickly. Just close your eyes and imagine a calming, beautiful, relaxing scene. It could be someplace you've been already. It could be someplace you want to go. But while you're there, pay attention to what you feel. Do you feel wind on your cheek? Pay attention to what you see. Pay attention to what you smell. If there's water, are the waves crashing? Do you smell the sea foam coming up? Okay, now slowly open your eyes. Now, by doing that, and you don't even realize it, you just reset your nervous system. Because while you were there, wherever you were, you disconnected from any stress that might have been here in the present where you are. And by going there, you actually disconnected that stress. So guided imagery is something that I recommend. Again, all of these practices that I'm sharing with you are very easy to implement, and they're quick. And so, for all of us very busy women, it's important, again, that it's something that you can just easily implement, so there's no excuses. Cognitive reframing. I know a couple speakers already spoke about this, but this is the same as reframing those negative thoughts, and they did a wonderful job talking about that. I'm just going to add a little bit to this, but this is shifting your mindset from the negative, limiting thoughts to positive, more productive thoughts. And I do want to say it's good for me, something that I teach actually when I'm working with athletes, if you have kind of a trigger word. So if you catch yourself thinking about something negative, you can, whatever your trigger word is, it might be stop. And then Dawn, you're thinking negatively, stop, and then you reframe that negative thought into something more positive. It could be reframe. I mentioned with the athletes that I work with, we use the term reroute, and that's because reroute is actually a term in football that means to change direction during a play. So you're essentially rerouting that negative thought. And then the third prong is the behavioral techniques. So again, these are those things that you do, they're habits, things that you may do on a daily basis, weekly basis, that are going to impact your well-being. And they're things like practicing ecotherapy, which we'll talk about on the next slide. Adding joy to your life is very important. Setting boundaries, starting an evening wind-down routine, and being very mindful about your sleep patterns. For adding joy, what I want everyone to do first is just think about, you don't have to write it down, but just think about 3 things that make you smile. And they could be things that you do, they could be places that you go, they could be people, but think about just 3 things. It could be appreciating flowers. It could be, for me, watching the sunset. Anytime I can catch the sunset, I'm gonna go find it. So whatever those things are, hold those in your mind, and then make an effort to include those in your every single week. So find at least maybe 10, 15 minutes, whatever the thing is. It depends on how long each thing takes. Some are very quick, some are a little longer, but make a concerted effort to include adding some joy into your week. Okay, so ecotherapy. Has anybody heard of this? Ecotherapy? Yes. Okay. So ecotherapy is, it's basically it's nature therapy. It's so when you go into nature and you're connecting with nature, it's actually lowering your cortisol, it's slowing your heart rate, and it's activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to reduce stress. So I recommend going out and being outside in some capacity, it doesn't matter what it is, for at least 10, 15 minutes a day. And it could be taking a walk. And I know we're all busy. That's the thing. Remember, that was one of the first slides. And don't say I don't have time, because you do. But it could be before you start your day, maybe you have your morning coffee on the porch or on the balcony or somewhere. But just make an effort to be outside at least 10, 15 minutes a day. We also talked about setting healthy boundaries. So I probably don't need to go into this very deeply, but as you all know, setting boundaries is so imperative for your mental health. And one in particular I want to talk about is the fourth one, removing toxic influences. You guys know where I'm going with this? Okay. So I had to do this recently. And it's tough, but it's necessary. So pay attention to how you feel, how your nervous system feels when you're around certain people. And if you're around certain people, regardless of who they are, they could be family, they could be people you've known forever, but if you feel drained, negative, sick, when you're around certain people, it's time to remove those people from your life. And I can't tell you how necessary it is, because they will just suck the life out of you. What this is about is your energy. And it's so important to protect your energy and be mindful who you share your energy with. And if there are people in your circle, you need to audit your circle that are stealing your energy or bringing you down. It's time for them to get out of the circle. These other examples of setting healthy boundaries, I think, did I do it again? I think are pretty self-explanatory, but we talked about the ecotherapy. As I mentioned before, really combining these three categories, the physiological, the cognitive, and the behavioral, are really important for total stress management or really effective stress management. And I want to leave you with this one. This is actually a holistic stress relief practice that you can do. I call it the triple threat, because it's touching on all three of those categories, providing the most amount of stress relief for you. And you can do it in 6 minutes. So everybody has 6 minutes at some point in their day. So you start with the diaphragmatic breathing to calm your body. Do that for 2 minutes. And then you move to the guided imagery that relaxes your mind. You do that for 2 minutes. And then you finish with that emotional audit that allows you to release those lingering thoughts and emotions. And you clear your mind at that point. And this is so effective if you do it once a day. And again, it only takes 6 minutes. So here is, I went a little faster than I thought. Here's a list of actually some helpful apps. I know for me, when I first started on this journey, and again, I was working with doctors and they were giving me certain practices, but also they recommended, it makes it so much easier when you have these apps. And there's so many apps out there. These are some of the ones that I'm most familiar with. I'm sure you're all familiar with Calm and Headspace. Those are the two most popular. But there are some other very good ones. And they touch on all three areas. So they're not just all meditation apps. There are some apps that can help you with, say, for instance, time management, which is also managing your time is helpful in terms of stress management. So Aura is actually, it's hard to see, but that's one that I'm just becoming more familiar with because they have a component. I don't think you guys are old enough, but they have a component that's kind of specific to, like, what's it called, perimenopause relief for women who are starting to change hormonally as they get older. And so I said, oh, okay, that's really interesting. So, but these are all very good if you want to take a screenshot and download whatever works for you. So key takeaways, we kind of talked about some of the important points already, but really going back to the beginning, you need to prioritize yourself, or it's going to lead to burnout or worse. I had a mental breakdown. It was not fun. It was a bad place to come back from. And if you don't take the time now, you'll be forced to take the time later to recover. And I just want to encourage all of you, if you haven't already, I'm sure some of you have, but if you haven't, or you've been using that excuse that many of us use, that we don't have time to incorporate these strategies or take time for ourselves or make sure that we're taken care of before everyone else, then I encourage you to start your wellness journey now. What's most important is finding what is working for you. All of these practices that I mentioned today, if you find, you can mix and match and find what feels comfortable with you. Some you may not resonate with. And others may be just like me with breath work, like, oh, that's my thing. I love breath work. I love autogenic training. Actually, I'm going to share a quick story. Autogenic training, when you get really good at it, is kind of like a party trick because you can warm your fingertips. I've seen it. I've done it, actually. I've seen it happen. Because your mind is actually controlling your body's response, and you can actually warm your fingertips and say, hey, come here and feel my fingertips. But more importantly, it's helping you with your stress management and resetting your nervous system. I have 1 minute to spare. That's pretty good. Based off of my experience, I created a lifestyle redesign program, which is going to be available on my website, which you can find there, dawnwhittaker.com. And I want to thank you all for sharing your time with me today and starting on this journey with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful speech and incredible presentation. Do we have any questions?
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your presentation and the valuable tips that you provided. This is probably going to be a loaded question. So, naturally as human, or even as kids, we don't learn from our mistakes until you do those things, until you fall off the stairs, and then you're like, oh, okay, I need to implement these tools in order to prevent that from happening again. So the same thing with, the tools that you've been providing in order to avoid to avoid burnouts.
Right.
Most often, we tend to not do them, and because we all know really well what's good for us and what's healthy for us, but we don't really do them, like you said, because we don't have time. Mm-hmm. And so we get to a point where it's basically too late, and probably what you've experienced in your own experience, where you experienced a burnout and you find these tools to be helpful. In your situation, working with athletes, mm-hmm. What did you find was doing the trick for them to implement these tools in order to avoid burnout, in order to implement these tools in their routine and making it a habit? like, because it takes effort in order for humans to like implement new habits that's good for us, again, until it's like late. But what did you find it was helpful or did the trigger for them to implement these tools before a burnout?
Okay, so I'll be totally honest with you. The truth is they are utilizing the tools that are provided to them after they crashed, or after something negative happened, or after they spiraled in substance abuse, or so they're down here, and they did have to crash in order to realize, like you mentioned, that no, I need to be doing other things to take care of my mental health. And part of my mission is to kind of get that word out to them before they crash. And same with you all, same with us women. Don't be like me, I'm sharing my story so you don't have to get to that point, because yes, I was able to recover. I had a great team. Like I mentioned, I had a great team of doctors, but what if I didn't? And what if it was worse than what it was for me? I was very ill, and I had depression. It was very, very bad, and I had to climb a large hill to get out of it, and thankfully I'm good. But what if it was worse? What if, I don't want to put negative words out there, but it could have been worse. So that's why, very valid point, a lot of us as humans, we have to burn our fingers on the stove before we say, oh, I better not touch that stove. We have to learn for ourselves when we know what we're supposed to do. So my hope is that by doing things like this, by having these types of talks and programs and things, I'm hoping that it will impact more people and get them to understand the value and the importance of taking care of your well-being before it's too late.
Thank you.
Thank you. I personally want to say thank you for mentioning diaphragm here. Yes. As I'm a voice coach, and I have Anima members from my community sitting here, and I'm constantly reminding them, please do breathe through your diaphragm, not just because your voice is going to be great, but because it is healthy. So yes, here's another reminder for that. Thank you so much. Beautiful presentation, of course, flowers and our presents for you. Let's give a big round of applause for our amazing speaker.